The
We
first thing
received a
you
call
learn
about
about the
suspicious
suburbs
activity in
is
this
that
neighborhood.
silence
I
doesn't
understand
mean
that, but you can't just
peace.
stop me while I'm walking
Sometimes it's
home.
just the
Ghost,
sound of
you just
judgment
need to
holding
verify
its
your
breath.
identity.
It was one of those crisp Saturday mornings in late September, the kind where the air smells like mowed grass and distant barbecues, and sunlight hits the rows of mailboxes like it's auditioning for a real estate ad. I had just pulled into the driveway of my new home in Lakeview Estates, a tidy, upper-middle-class neighborhood tucked 20 minutes north of Richmond, Virginia. You know the type. Cul-de-sacs named after trees, welcome to our community signs, and homeowners association rules thicker than a Bible. To be honest, I didn't care for HOAs. But after 22 years on the force, 12 of them as a commander in the Richmond Police Department, I'd learned to pick my battles. My wife, Tamara, had fallen in love with the backyard, the old oak tree shading the patio, and the good school district for our teenage daughter, Jayla. So, I swallowed my dislike for suburban politics and signed the mortgage. That morning, I'd been running errands, grocery run mostly. Tamara was working a hospital shift, and Jayla had cheer practice. It was my day off, though in my world that just meant I'd get fewer phone calls. I parked my black Ford Expedition in the driveway and started unloading the bags. Fresh vegetables, a couple of steaks, coffee beans, the essentials. I was halfway through when I heard a sharp voice across the street. "Excuse me, you can't park there." I looked up. She was standing at the edge of her manicured lawn, short blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and the kind of expression that made you feel like you were already guilty of something. Khaki shorts, HOA clipboard tucked under one arm like a badge. And behind her, leaning on a silver Dodge Charger, was a kid, maybe 21. Baseball cap backward, arms crossed, smirk glued to his face. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of the longest weekend of my life. "Morning," I said, setting another grocery bag on the porch. "Can I help you with something?" She squinted, as though she hadn't expected me to sound so calm. "I'm the HOA chair," she said crisply. "Karen Whitfield. And yes, you can help me. That driveway isn't registered for commercial vehicles." I blinked, confused. "Commercial?" She nodded toward my SUV. Black tinted windows, decals on the bumper. "It looks like a service vehicle. HOA guidelines prohibit." I cut her off gently. "It's my personal car, ma'am. No commercial use, just groceries." The kid behind her snorted. "Sure, groceries. What's in there, man, weed?" I froze mid-step. It wasn't the words. I'd heard worse. It was the way he said man, like it wasn't just a word, but a warning. Karen turned to him sharply. "Zachary, watch your tone." But she didn't really mean it. It was the kind of scolding that covers a smile. I took a slow breath and kept unloading. Years of police work had taught me restraint, the kind that keeps you alive and employed. Zachary, her son apparently, wasn't done. He pushed off the Charger and walked closer, glancing into the back of my SUV. "Hey, you got extra steaks in there? I'm starving." "Then you should have gone to the store," I said evenly, closing the hatch. He grinned, stepping onto my driveway like he owned it. "Nah, you look like you got enough to share, man. What, police salary got you living nice now?" Karen flinched. "Zachary," but again too soft. I straightened, grocery bag still in hand. "You need to step off my property," he chuckled. "Relax, bro. Just playing." "Not your bro," I said quietly. The silence between us was like a wire pulled tight. He muttered something under his breath. Something I'd heard too many times in alleys and traffic stops, a racial slur dressed up as a joke. I set the bag down. "What did you say?" He smirked, stepping backward like he'd just lit a firecracker. "You heard me, Commander. I hadn't told him my rank." "Not yet." I glanced at Karen. Her face had drained of color. "I think you should go," she said quickly to her son. He shrugged. "What, I can't talk to the neighbors now?" I didn't respond. I picked up my bag and went inside. Tamara would have told me to let it go. Jayla would have said, "Dad, don't give them what they want," and they'd both be right. But something about that smirk, that entitlement, stuck with me. Later that afternoon, I was trimming the hedges out front when I noticed Karen pacing near her mailbox on her phone. Every few words, she glanced toward my house. At one point, she locked eyes with me, then quickly looked away. I didn't think much of it. Until about an hour later, when a black and white patrol car rolled down the street. 2 officers stepped out, young, probably new to the department. I recognized them, Officers Mills and Grady. I'd signed off on their academy paperwork last year. "Afternoon, Commander," Mills said awkwardly. "We, got a call from a resident?" I nodded slowly. "Karen Whitfield?" He looked surprised. "Yes, sir. What's the complaint?" He hesitated, glancing at his partner. "Suspicious activity. Possible harassment. Said you were intimidating her and her son?" My laugh came out low and humorless. "Did she mention her son trespassed on my property and used racial slurs?" Grady cleared his throat. "She didn't, sir." "Of course not," I said. Karen was standing on her porch now, arms folded, watching like she was proud of her performance. "Tell you what," I said, keeping my voice level. "Let's handle this professionally." I walked over to her house, the officers following. She straightened as I approached. "Commander," she said, tone suddenly sugary. "I didn't realize you were the man you called the cops on." I finished. "Yeah, that's me." The officers shifted uncomfortably. Karen's smile faltered. There was a misunderstanding. My son felt threatened. Your son walked onto my property," I said. He cursed at me. "Used racist language? And now you're wasting police time with false reports." Her lips tightened. "I don't appreciate your tone." "Ma'am," I said calmly, "you're lucky my tone's all you have to deal with right now." Mills stepped forward gently. "Commander, maybe we should—" "I'm fine, officer. Just documenting." I pulled my phone out, snapped a picture of her standing there with the officers, then another of her son's Charger parked nearby. "In case this escalates." Karen's eyes widened. "Are you threatening me?" "No, ma'am. I'm protecting myself." I turned to the officers. "You've got what you need?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Dismissed." They hesitated, then nodded, retreating to their cruiser. Karen watched them go, then hissed, "You people always think you can pull rank to get your way." That one cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I turned and walked back toward my house, her words echoing in my chest. That night, Tamara came home around 9. She found me sitting on the back porch, whiskey glass untouched on the table, the cicadas screaming in the dark. She kissed my cheek. "You look like you wrestled a ghost," I chuckled softly. "Close enough." I told her what happened, the groceries, the son, the cops. She listened quietly, her hand on mine. When I finished, she sighed. "You knew moving here wasn't going to be simple." "I did," I said, "but I didn't expect it to start this fast." "You could file a report," she suggested. "Make it official." I admitted. But that'd just give them something to twist. She studied me for a moment. "You always play by the book. But sometimes people like that. They don't respect the book. They respect power." "Power gets abused in neighborhoods like this," I said softly. She smiled faintly. "Then show them what power looks like when it's in the right hands." The next morning, I woke to a note slid under the door, typed, "Anonymous." This is a friendly reminder that Lakeview Estates values community harmony. Please refrain from aggressive behavior toward your neighbors. Continued incidents may result in HOA fines or legal action. At the bottom, unsigned. But I didn't need a signature. Karen had made her move. I stared at the paper for a long time, then folded it neatly and slipped it into a folder labeled Documentation. Because if there's one thing a cop knows better than anyone, it's how to build a case. That weekend, I noticed the whispers start. Neighbors pausing mid-conversation when I walked by. The jogger who crossed the street to avoid me. Even the mailman hesitated, scanning my mailbox twice like he wasn't sure if it was safe. Karen was planting seeds, the kind that grow fast in perfect lawns. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. She thought I was just another black homeowner who'd moved into her picture-perfect world. She didn't know I'd been negotiating with cartel leaders, breaking up domestic standoffs, and calming armed men who'd lost their minds. if she wanted a war of perception. She was about to find out how calm looks right before the storm. On Sunday afternoon, I saw Zachary again. He was walking his pit bull, leash loose, swagger heavy. When he saw me, he smirked. "Hey, Commander," he called. "Cops treating you okay?" I didn't answer. He grinned wider. "You know, Mom says this neighborhood's going downhill ever since they started letting just anyone in." I stopped mid-step. "Say that again," he shrugged. "Just quoting the HOA, man." Before I could speak, the dog lunged, barking, teeth bared, straining at the leash. Zachary laughed, tugging it back. "Easy, boy. Don't want to scare the nice man." I stepped closer. "You're playing with fire, kid," he smirked. "You gonna arrest me for walking my dog?" I leaned in just enough for him to see the steel in my eyes. "No, I'm gonna let you hang yourself with that leash first." He blinked, unsure if it was a threat or a prophecy. Then I smiled. "But I'll be watching." I turned and walked away, feeling his stare burn into my back. That night, I heard shouting outside, faint at first, then louder. I stepped onto the porch. Karen and Zachary were in their driveway arguing. I couldn't make out all the words, but I caught a few. Stupid. Embarrassing. Neighbors watching. Then Zachary kicked over a trash can and stormed off toward his car. The engine roared, and he peeled out of the cul-de-sac, tires screeching. Karen turned and saw me standing there. Her face went cold. "What are you looking at?" she snapped. I didn't answer. She slammed her door shut. The echo lingered in the still night air, a promise of trouble still to come. The next morning, I got the call. "Commander Bryant?" The voice on the other end was tight. "We've got a situation." It was Mills, the young officer from before. "Talk to me," I said. "Your neighbor's son, Zachary Whitfield, was picked up last night near the Wawa off Broad Street. DUI, minor crash. No injuries," my jaw clenched. "Was he alone?" "Yes, sir. He's in holding right now." "Who's his contact?" "His mother's already on her way. Says she wants to talk to whoever's in charge." "Of course she does." I grabbed my jacket. "I'll be there in 20. When I walked into the precinct, the air was thick with curiosity. A few officers nodded at me, others avoided eye contact. Everyone knew about the HOA incident by now. Gossip moved fast through the department. Zachary sat slumped in the holding area, head down, hands cuffed. Karen stood at the front desk, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I demand he be released immediately. You have no right to—" Her words died when she saw me. I walked up slowly, the click of my shoes echoing on the tile. "Mrs. Whitfield," I said calmly. "We meet again." Her jaw dropped. What are you doing here?" "I run this division," I said simply. "Your son's in my custody." The look on her face was pure disbelief, the kind that comes when privilege finally runs into a wall it can't push over. Zachary looked up, eyes bloodshot, recognition dawning. "Oh, hell," I smiled faintly. "Language, son." "You're in enough trouble already," Karen sputtered. "You can't. This is a conflict of interest. I'll report you." I folded my arms. "You already have. Multiple times. Doesn't make you right." The station went silent. Karen stared at me, and for the first time I saw it. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. Karen Whitfield didn't just leave the station that day. She erupted out of it like a firecracker in daylight, screaming about lawyers, corruption, and abuse of authority, all while her son trailed behind her, head hung low, smelling like stale beer and regret. I watched from my office window as she marched across the parking lot, clutching her purse like it was a weapon. The automatic doors hissed closed behind her, and for a moment the whole building felt quieter, like the air itself was exhaling. But quiet doesn't mean peace. Not in Lakeview Estates. Not anymore. That evening I drove home with a migraine blooming behind my eyes. Tamara was waiting on the porch, arms crossed. Expression somewhere between concern and "I told you so." "I heard," she said, "before I even opened my mouth." "Word travels fast," I muttered. She gestured toward her phone. "It's already on the neighborhood app." Someone posted about a domestic abuse of power incident at the police station. Guess who they're talking about? I didn't have to guess. Inside, I scrolled through the thread. Dozens of comments, mostly neighbors hiding behind polite language that stung worse than slurs. This is why background checks should be stricter for homeowners. Unprofessional. Behavior doesn't belong in our community. Maybe authority makes some people forget their place. No one said black, but they didn't need to. The subtext was screaming it. I rubbed my temples. She's poisoning the whole neighborhood. Tamara's voice softened. You can't out-yell people like that, Marcus. They feed on drama. You have to outlast them. I've dealt with gang leaders with more decency than this woman, I said bitterly. She gave a half smile. Yeah, but gang leaders don't file HOA complaints. I almost laughed. Almost Monday morning, I found a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. Unapproved lawn ornamentation. Please remove all non-standard signage immediately. I stared at the small American flag planted near the walkway. The same flag that draped coffins at police funerals. The same flag that had been handed to me by a widow last year, tears soaking its fabric. I tore the notice down, folded it neatly, and put it in my documentation folder beside the anonymous letter. It wasn't just pettiness anymore. It was a campaign. By Wednesday, the whispers had turned to cold shoulders. Neighbors who once waved at me now looked away. Kids who'd played basketball with Jayla suddenly stopped coming over. Even the mailman, a kind older guy named Greg, seemed uncomfortable lingering too long. Tamara noticed too. They're scared, she said one night, rinsing dishes. Not of you, of what they think you represent. What's that supposed to mean? She turned off the water, faced me. You wear that uniform every day, Marcus. You walk like a man who commands a room. But in neighborhoods like this, that confidence doesn't read as protector. It reads as threat. I didn't respond. I didn't want to admit she was right. That weekend, the HOA had its monthly meeting, open to residents. Normally, I'd skip it, but this time I went. I wore a polo and jeans, no badge, no visible authority. Just a neighbor trying to coexist. The meeting was in the clubhouse. White walls, folding chairs, and a pot of burnt coffee. Maybe 30 people sat scattered around, murmuring. Karen stood at the front beside a projector, smiling like she'd been born for this stage. And as I was saying, she chirped, we must ensure that Lakeview Estates remains a safe, respectful environment for all residents. Applause. Her gaze flicked to me mid-sentence, just a flicker, then back to the crowd. She continued, voice dripping honey. However, recent incidents have raised concerns about conduct unbecoming of community members. Intimidation, aggressive behavior, even law enforcement harassment. I raised my hand. Excuse me. Are you referring to me? Her smile didn't waver. Commander Bryant, this isn't personal. Then let's keep it that way, I said evenly. Because you're treading close to defamation. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Karen's eyes narrowed. We're simply discussing safety, Commander. No need for threats. I leaned forward slightly. You called the police on me for unloading groceries. Your son trespassed, insulted me, and got arrested days later for DUI, and I'm the problem? A few heads turned toward her. Whispers started. Her face flushed red. I will not be disrespected, I nodded. Neither will I. Silence. Then the HOA vice chair, a quiet man named David, cleared his throat. Let's move on to the next item. Karen glared daggers at me as she sat down. I smiled politely, glad to be part of the community. That night, someone egged my car. The splatter dried under the morning sun, yolk streaking down the windshield like yellow tears. Jayla saw it first. Dad, she yelled from the driveway. What the heck? I came out, jaw tight, hand steady. Inside, I told her. Who would inside, Jayla? She hesitated, then obeyed. I stood there staring at the mess. The smell of rot, the slow drip of defiance. Tamara stepped beside me, silent. This isn't just about groceries anymore, she said softly. No, I said. It's about control. She looked at me. What are you going to do? I wiped my hands on a rag. Remind her what accountability looks like. Monday morning, I walked into City Hall. Civilian Division, Public Records Department. Morning, Commander, the clerk said nervously. What can I do for you? I need the HOA's registration and board filings for Lakeview Estates. Those are public, but good, I said, flashing a tight smile. Print everything. 30 minutes later, I had a file in hand thicker than my wrist. When I got home, I started reading. Pages of budgets, maintenance contracts, board minutes, all with Karen's signature somewhere near the bottom. But it wasn't until page 47 that I found it, an expense discrepancy. Landscaping retainer, $12,800. Vendor, Whitfield Maintenance, LLC. I frowned. That was her last name. A quick online search confirmed it. The company was registered to Zachary Whitfield, with Karen listed as Administrative Manager. Conflict of interest. Illegal under HOA bylaws, and, if proven intentional, fraud. My heart thudded slow and steady. I sat back in my chair and whispered, "You picked the wrong man to mess with." That Friday, I filed a formal ethics complaint with the HOA's Regional Oversight Board, with evidence attached. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Tamara. The next morning, I saw Karen jogging, or pretending to. She slowed near my house, pretending to adjust her smartwatch, eyes darting toward my mailbox. She'd feel it soon enough. But karma moves in strange ways. Because just as I thought I was gaining ground, something happened that changed everything. It was a Sunday night when the phone rang. I was watching the game, half asleep on the couch. "Commander Bryant?" The voice was shaky. "This is he. This is Officer Grady. Sir, there's been an incident." My body went cold. "Talk." "It's your neighbor, Karen Whitfield. She's been assaulted." I sat up straight. "What?" "She's at St. Mary's Hospital. Says it happened near her house around 9. I rubbed my temples. "Do we have a suspect?" He hesitated. "She gave us a name." "Who?" A pause. Then, "You, sir." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. By the time I got to the hospital, it was nearly midnight. The fluorescent lights hummed. The corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Karen sat in a private room, arm bandaged, a bruise blooming along her jaw. She looked smaller without her sunglasses and arrogance. When she saw me, her eyes widened, not in triumph, but terror. "You," she whispered. "Why are you here?" "Because you accused me of something I didn't do," I said. Her voice trembled. "You were outside my house. I heard your car. I was home. My daughter was doing homework. My wife can vouch for me." She shook her head. "I saw you." I leaned forward slightly. "Then tell me what you really saw, Karen." She looked away. "A shadow. Someone tall, dark jacket. They said something like, 'You think you can ruin me?'" I let out a slow breath. "That wasn't me," she swallowed. "Then who was it?" That was the question that hung between us, cold, heavy, and real. Back at the precinct, I reviewed the report myself. The responding officers had found tire tracks near her driveway, size 18, wider than my expedition's 17s. They'd also recovered a torn glove from the bushes. No direct evidence linking me. But perception is a different kind of evidence. Chief Reynolds called me into his office the next morning. "Marcus," he said, rubbing his temples, "you're one of my best. But this is bad optics. With respect, sir, it's also a lie." "I know. But until we clear it, I'm putting you on administrative leave." I stared at him. "You're benching me because a racist neighbor made up a story?" "I'm protecting the department," he said quietly. "And you?" I laughed bitterly. Funny kind of protection. I handed him my badge and sidearm. The metal felt heavier than usual when I told Tamara. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "We'll get through it." Jayla didn't say anything. She just hugged me, tight, quiet, scared. That night I sat on the porch again. The neighborhood was dark, still, pretending to be innocent. Somewhere a sprinkler hissed to life. And in that whisper of water, I made a promise to myself, I will clear my name. And when I do, every truth they've buried will come to light. 2 days later, a knock echoed on my door. I opened it to find Officer Mills, the young cop who'd once responded to Karen's first call. He looked uneasy. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "I thought you should see this." He handed me an evidence photo, grainy security footage. from a Ring doorbell across the street from Karen's house. The timestamp read 9:03 p.m. The figure in the image was tall, male, wearing a hoodie, not me, too broad in the shoulders, too light in the skin tone. But here's what made my blood run cold. The figure was wearing a Whitfield maintenance jacket, Zachary's company. I looked up at Mills. "You show this to anyone else?" He shook his head. "Not yet, sir. Thought you'd want to handle it first." I nodded slowly. "Good instinct." He hesitated. "You think it was him?" "I think," I said quietly. "Karen's son has secrets she doesn't want the world to see." Mills frowned. "But why accuse you?" I looked out toward the street, the same one where she'd once called the cops on me for unloading groceries. "Because she's protecting him," I said, just like she always has. That night, I sat in my study surrounded by files, photos, and coffee cups. I played the video again and again, the grainy silhouette moving across her driveway, the faint flash of a gloved hand. Then something caught my eye. The man, Zachary, I was sure of it, wasn't alone. For a split second, another figure appeared at the edge of the frame, shorter, female, holding a phone, recording. Karen. My pulse kicked up. She'd staged it. Maybe not the assault itself, but the story, the accusation, the smear. The bruise on her jaw could have been real, but maybe not caused by what she claimed. I sat back, adrenaline humming through my veins. I didn't just have a feud now. I had a case.